Hey, how's it going? It's Joe. I've got some new units to show you today. These are all kind of similar. The first one is XOXOXO, also known as California Stars. The next one is just XOXO, also known as Hey Little Sister. And the final one is XO, which is known as Firm Handshake. The only difference between these really is the number of oscillators or operators, and therefore the CPU usage. These all require firmware version 0.4.25 or better. That's the current one as of the making of this video. You can see that this big one here, California Stars, is pretty CPU intensive. Subtracting out the initial 3 or so percent for the just the naked OS, we're running right about 22-23%. But it is a monster synth. So this is a 6-operator wavetable algorithmless phase modulation synthesizer. Woo! It's a lot of words. So basically the architecture is that there are, in this one there are 6 operators, in the next one there are 4, and in the smallest one there are 2. And these operators all have wavetables behind them that you can modulate, and they're set up so that each oscillator or operator can phase modulate any other operator simultaneously even. So it's kind of like a DX7 really. Maybe even a little more advanced in some ways because we've got some wavetables in here instead of pure sine waves, and obviously you've got the full extent of your modular system behind it, so you can bring in all kinds of modulation sources. Everything is modulatable, both externally and through internal ER-301 chains. So let's go over the basic controls here. We're just seeing a few of them here on the main screen. We've got the volt per octave, which is where you just connect like a sequencer or keyboard voltage source. We've got F0, which is we can just adjust kind of the core frequency of everything. And these two right here control all of the operators together. So that sets the core frequency and the voltage volt per octave offset for all of the operators. Next we've got a sync control, so that just syncs all the oscillators, which is kind of cool when you have integer interval relationships between the frequencies to get those in sync. We've got kind of the standard oscillator built-in VCA. And then we've got this clip. It's not really a control. This is actually just kind of an indicator. So I'll show you how this works. So most of the controls are really hidden in the menu here. So if you go into the menu, we've got a view for each operator, A, B, C, D, E, F, 1 through 6. We've got the main view, which is what we just looked at. That's what comes up first. And I guess I should point out that really all of the available controls are either in A, B, C, D, E, F, and main. So those contain all the available controls. And then these next 4 views, outputs, ratios, wavetable, and frequencies, contain duplicates of those controls. They're just arranged a little bit differently for convenience. So let's take a look at, let's take a look at the outputs view first. So here we can send each of these operators to the output. And actually I think I'm just going to, for sake of being able to hear it, I'm going to go ahead and bring the frequency up some. Let's bring it up 3600. And let's just go to this outputs view. And we've got each of the operators to the output. So I can turn them up. And right now they all sound the same because they're all set the same. Let's go into the ratios view and adjust some of the ratios. Back to the outputs view here. My clip indicator isn't lit yet. So basically, each of these operators is kind of a full strength waveform, right? It can go from -1 to 1 or, basically -10 to 10 volts. So obviously if you turned all of these up all the way, you're going to clip out really badly before you hit the final VCA. So this clip indicator is really just to kind of, let me demonstrate it. So when I start turning this one up, let me unmute, you're going to start to see this clip indicator light go on when the signal gets too large. So that's just kind of a visual indicator for you to back things off a little bit. That's pre-final VCA, so that we wouldn't necessarily be able to tell there was clip coming out of there. But when you turn it up here and you start to see the clip, if we look at the signal going out, if I unmute, it's above the lines now. Okay. What else here? So we've got a view for each operator, and this contains all of the controls relevant to that operator. So this, we've already talked about the out. A.out sends oscillator A to the output at this level. We've got a ratio control for it, which is just a multiplier of the base frequency. Right now we have that set to 32.7, so times 1 is 32.7. This would be 2 would be 65 point something. And they jump by integers in coarse mode. We can turn it into fine mode, and we can make adjustments here more minutely, or even hold down shift in fine mode and get even finer adjustments. Let's see, let's talk about the scan controls next. So I'm going to go back over here to the Outputs tab. I'm going to turn B down and turn C down. I'm going to send only A to the output. And now let's go back to operator A. So this is going to scan the wavetable, and by default this moves in increments of 0.33 or so, and basically this just kind of snaps to the perfect waveform shapes. We've got 4 waveforms here. We've got a sine, a triangle, a square, and then a sawtooth. So as you move in coarse mode, this is going to kind of flip between these. Let me unmute. We've got a sine wave now. Of course, you can put it into fine mode here and morph between those wave shapes. And you can do that with every oscillator. These controls are the same on every oscillator, really. We've got the fine-tuning control, which, if you sweep this up, you'll notice it actually goes, well into the tens of thousands of hertz. But this frequency is kind of an offset. So, you've got your base frequency. Right now we've got that set to 32.7, which is a C. You've got this ratio, which is a multiplier. And then we also add on the volt per octave. And then this fine control is actually added kind of after all of that stuff. So, if you set this to like 3 hertz or something like that, you're just going to kind of get a 3 hertz offset across the board for this oscillator. And that's pretty typical in, FM phase modulation kind of sense. Last up, we've got these controls here that say A to A to B, A to C, A to D, A to E, and these are the phase modulation indexes. So this is the phase modulation index of oscillator A to oscillator A. So in that case, this is a feedback control. And, this would send, increase the modulation index, phase modulation index of operator A to operator F, if we adjusted that. So let's take a look at, let's do some modulation with operator B as the modulator and A as the carrier. So we've already got the output turned up some for A. Let's go to B. B ratio is set to 2. And let's send some of B to A. Cool. So as I mentioned, all of these controls are modulatable. Typically what you would probably do is put envelopes in here that, triggered along with your sequencer or your keyboard. Just to kind of do a quick demonstration, let me just put, a sine wave or something in here to modulate it. So let's put that in there. Let's turn this down to LFO kind of rates, and we'll bring the gain up here a bit. Unmute. And, we can also send some of C to A, so let's do that. Let's bring the ratio way up on that one, and send a little bit of C into A. And we could also send some of C straight to the output. So you can see, even though we're calling this an algorithmless phase modulation synthesizer, really you can build up all of the FM algorithms that you know about, a lot of those that were present on like the Yamaha DX7, and you can create new ones that you couldn't with that because they're not fixed. Anyway, let's send a little bit of C to the output. Let's see, what else to say here? Those are kind of the basics of it. Obviously, you could make all kinds of crazy sounds with this, and some pretty normal, kind of synth acoustic, orchestral sounds too. It's really pretty powerful. I think the final thing to say here is that because of the way the ER-301 magically works, if you replace one unit with another unit, it does its level best. Not only to set the values for controls that are named the same thing to the same value that they were in the previous unit, but it also does its best to maintain the subchains. So the point here is that there are three versions of this. There's the 6 oscillator version, the 4 oscillator version, and the 2 oscillator version. So if I'm working with the 6 operator version, and I notice that I have only used 3 of my operators, and I'm currently at a CPU of 29% with what I have in here. I could just switch it out with the 4 operator version because I only need 3 of them. So let's do that. I'm going to unmute so we can hear the sound, and then I'm going to switch this with the 4 operator version. We should hear the same sound, and we should see the CPU drop. So there we go. The sound is exactly the same. If we go into, I think it was B where I had set up the sine oscillator, it's still there. But the CPU has dropped from 30 to about 17. So that's kind of a cool way to work with these. You can go, up or down. If you're working with the 2 operator version and you decide you'd like some more, you can move up to the 4 or 6 operator version. And if you're working with the 6, you can move down.